Hi good people, Titus here for part 2 of our smoke grenade series, and in this video we'll work on creating the texture for our particle system. So there's a few ways we can do this. The easiest way of course is just to go to the web, search for any smoke PNG that contains an alpha. We're looking for a general circular shape because when we import it into Unreal Engine it's going to add it as a particle system, so if you do something that's very squarish or boxy, the particle system's not going to look very good. So try to go for this and make sure it has an alpha. There's a few ways you can try to create it. Photoshop is probably the easiest way because I think they have some smoke brushes you can actually import. If you don't have that, you can also use Paint. Just as a quick demonstration, we can create a new image. I'm going to do an 800 by 800. And then I'm simply going to create an alpha, so I'll just create a new layer, delete this one. And then there is a render effect called clouds. You select that, and then I'll usually just scale it all the way in, turn the roughness all the way up, and then you can randomize, see if you can get some different shapes. Once you're happy with something, just click OK. We'll select our circle select, create a rough circle, and hold Shift, and that'll create like a nice even circle all the way around. Once you have that, press Ctrl I. That will invert the selection, and you can then delete it. Then we can go back to Effects, and then we can go into Blurs, and there's a fragment option. Just select that, and then I find that a distance in the 30s is pretty good, with a fragment of about maybe 5. Between 3 and 5 I think is okay, something like that. Once you have that, we can go back into Effects, and then we can go into Distort, and there's a Dense option. And then generally what you're going for is you're trying to create like a wavy effect, so something similar to this. Just kind of play with the scale and see if you can get something a little bit wider, and then just adjust the detail value so it's not so it doesn't look so computer generated, I guess. Something like maybe that. Maybe I'll lower the turbulence. Yeah, something like this. Basically play with the turbulence, detail, and I find scale are my best values. If you want to match mine, you can, but something that looks very close to smoke, and it's going to give us a lot of different details. Once you got that, if you wanted to, you can go a little bit further and add maybe a Gaussian blur and just kind of blur it out just a little bit to hide the imperfections. I'm actually going to cancel it though, and I'm actually going to export it just as it is because I'm happy with that. So I can do Save As, and we'll just title this one PaintNet _ smoke. Another way you can create the smoke effect is you can actually use the GNU image manipulation tool, or GIMP. You can just go, it's free to download, so you can create a new image from this. I'm going to do 800 by 800. I'm going to select Advanced, and I'm going to do an X and Y resolution of 72. I think it normally defaults to 300, which is great for print quality, but for digital, you generally want a lower compress value. I'm going to choose RGB color, 32-bit floating, and I'm going to fill with transparency, and then click OK. And then this tool actually comes with some brushes, which are pretty handy. So you can try some of these out. Like I think this one works pretty good, acrylic number 4. And then I'm just going to select a white. So I'll boost my white to 100. And then I'll maybe just kind of freehand, just like a little circular kind of pattern like this. Nothing crazy. And then you can try out other patterns on top of it as well. Maybe something like this. Just get something a little bit random there. And then what I like to do as well is you can actually come into your color, and we can bump the color down by like maybe 80 points, get a little bit of gray in there, And then we can bring the size down a bit. And then you can kind of get some random discoloration in there, so it'll show up in your actual Unreal Engine on the import as well. So once you got something just a little bit different, I then like to take my warp tool, the little warp transform, and then I'll just grab the edges and I'll just give a little bit of tug kind of randomly throughout the image, just to distort it just a little bit. And it doesn't have to look perfect, just something like that. And then you come into your smear tool and just leave the default, should be fine. And then I usually just go on the outside and then I'll just smear the colors together. So you get some differences, kind of like you see with clouds. Like clouds aren't perfectly white, there's hints of gray in there. And then I'll smear this around a bit too, and I'll leave some clarity around the image, so it's a little bit blurry in some areas but clear in others, and that can hide a lot of your imperfections until you're left with something like this. And then if you're happy with your image, we can just go to File, Export As. We'll call this GNU _smoke. And I believe I saved that over here. Right here. Okay, so then I'll hit Export. It's going to bring up another window, ask you for what, I usually just leave the defaults alone, so kind of just what you see here, and then I'll hit Export, and then that's pretty much done. Now, the final way you can create the image is you can actually use Blender. So Blender actually has a built-in smoke simulation effect. So this is a default scene. We can just hit X, delete our cube. We'll do Shift A. I'm going to add a regular UV sphere. I'm going to scale and hold Control. Just make it pretty small. Maybe shade smooth. That shouldn't matter. Once you have the object where you want it, you can just go into the Object tab here. There's a Quick Effects, and then you can add Quick Smoke. And then if we hit the spacebar, you can see the simulation plays just like that. Now, to add a little bit of detail to the effect, you can come into the Physics tab here. Oops, sorry, right here. And then we can come down, and your resolution divisions are really where you get the quality. But before we do that, let's check our border collisions so we can get this thing simulating all around the box. It's going to slow it down a little bit, but I don't have a great GPU, so there you go. Get some more interesting smoke effect there. And then what I like to do as well is hit Adaptive Domain and then expand that out, and there's some resolution steps. You can actually just bump this to 1 or 2, and then my end step is at 250, so it's kind of long, so I'm actually going to change that to maybe 100. And then for my cache, I'll set that to 100 as well. And then you can see the effect is looking a little bit more pronounced here, so you get some interesting smoke. What we can do is come up and increase our detail from 32 divisions to 64, and we can see how my card will handle that. Your mileage may vary. And it doesn't matter so much if your card can't handle it, because we're going to be doing a still image anyways. And if you really needed the video effect of it, you can bake it. So there's a thing down here under cache. You can set this to all, and then you can hit bake all, and it'll actually smooth out the effect for you. I'll switch it back to replay. And then we're just kind of waiting for the effect to play out. And then if we freeze frame it here, you can see it's doing pretty well with the Eevee render engine. If I were to switch this to like cycles and move into my viewport shading, you can see you're getting a much more realistic lighting effect. And then, like I said, you can basically just find whatever angle of the smoke that you like, because we only need one still image. And then you just press Control-Alt-0. You set up your camera. You know, you can go into your camera properties over here. You know, whether you want 50 millimeter or, you know, a little bit further away, 35 millimeter. Basically capture that. The only problem with doing it this way is you're going to have to, it's a little bit more work because you're going to have to light it. So you're going to want to throw some lights in there and get your effect. But you're also, once you get the image created, I mean, you can set the output and crop it here because we need an 800 by 800. But I find that you're still going to have to clean up the edges. So you'll make like a square, and then you'll want to take that in your image software and actually delete the edges. So it's not a perfect square and it's more of a sphere. That way, when you put it into Unreal Engine, it just doesn't look like a bunch of cubes coming in. Even though the detail is going to be better, it still won't look correct. Another thing you can do too is if you go to like the smoke domain, select over here, you can do Shift A, force field, and there's a turbulence effect. And now when this resets, you'll get a little bit more natural movement. Kind of like that. Then we can come into the physics. I can set the wind amount to 1 on the turbulence factor. We can set the point to a plane, and we can come back to the smoke domain. I don't know if my computer's going to handle this very well, but I'm going to try to bump it to 128. This is probably going to go poorly. See, it's very, very slow. But you can see the turbulence is affecting the actual smoke effect a lot more because there's a lot more detail there. And then for the turbulence, I have it set to twist and pull, but you could set it to, you can tell the smoke to go left or right, up or down, could affect the gravity. So, you can use Blender to actually simulate some really cool physics-based smoke effects, and then you just render out an image, and then clean that up in your image software. And then you can get a pretty good effect just with that. All right, but no matter what option you choose, maybe do more than one, create a few images. Once you got them, we can go back into Unreal, and I'm going to go back to our content drawer, and let's actually bring those images in. So I have them over here. I'm just going to select all of them and just drag them in. That'll automatically import them. Now remember, they're texture-based images, so we can't really use them. We have to right-click and create a material. And then I will name this M_smoke effect. All right, and then you can simply double-click on the material. It'll bring it up to edit the properties. The material setup's pretty simple. We're just going to set the material domain to actually, we're going to leave that alone at surface, but the blend mode, we're going to switch to translucent. The shading model, I'm going to switch to unlit, and then I'm going to switch this to two-sided. And then I'm also going to go into set it as a plane so I can see it a little bit easier. And then from here, we need 2 multiply nodes, so I'm going to hold M, click twice. And then from there, I can right-click and create a particle color. And then the top option is going to be our RGB. The bottom option is going to be our alpha or our opacity. So you hook up your RGB there and your opacity down there. And then it's just a matter of dragging in some of these effects here. So I'm going to drag some of these into the scene. So we can kind of mess around, test them, see what we like. I think the web one's probably still going to be best because that was professionally done. But we can see how we did. So RGB, I'll hook that one up in here, and then the opacity in there. And now we we just hook these into the emissive color and this one into the opacity. And now you have this texture effect right here. Now we haven't created the Niagara system, but just so you can kind of see it, I will use the one I created for the demo. So under SFX, I'll show you how to create this in the next video, but we can come down here. I'm going to change this to the M_smoke effect that we just created. Save it. And now when we play the scene, you can see, it's not perfect, but it's smoke. If you get some Z fighting, it's you got two options. You can either space out the effect, and we'll do this in the Niagara system in the next video, but you can make it wider, or you can reduce the count. So either spawn fewer or space them out a bit. Let's go back into our smoke effect. So that was, I think, the one we created. Oh, from GNU. So here is the paint.net one. A little bit more basic. RGB there. Opacity there. Save. This one's going to look like a biohazard, I think. So, much different effect. And there's a lot more gray and a lot more Z fighting, so we have that too close. But there you go, you can see that there. And then if we go into the last one, I think this last one was probably done in Photoshop. It's got really good edges. So it's going to blend a lot better. You can see it there. Now, as a bit of fun, what you can do with your effects as well, you can color them. So if we were to come here, we could add a constant 3, or just press 3 and click on your keyboard. And we can right-click, convert it to a parameter, call it color. And then we'll click M, and then click on the keyboard to add a multiply node. And then we're going to hold 1. Actually, no, we're going to do S for a scalar. So hold S, do scalar, and we'll call it brightness. And then we'll hook this one into the A channel, this one into the B channel. And then for color, you can pick something pretty fun here. Something like that. Go the brightness of maybe just 20. And then we'll replace the RGB and the particle color. And that should add color to your smoke effect. So now when you play, some of that Z fighting might hide a little bit better with it being like lit, kind of like that. And you still get some of the advantage there of the particle color that fades them out, which is kind of nice. And then you'll notice when you add color to the effects too, some of your previous ones that you did that maybe didn't show as good, they'll show a little bit better now. So we add that one in there. There. Looks a lot better. Still got the Z fighting because it's too close together, or responding too many, but that we can fix later on. And then the last one, if we just wanted to give it a quick look, was this one, RGB and opacity. And this is the one in GNU, which I really like. I think that one came out pretty good. Alright, good people, this concludes part 2 of the smoke grenade series. In the next video, we'll create the Niagara effect using the newly created smoke textures that we just made. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.